Right now, if you took every Barcelona player who came through La Masia and is still under contract at the club and priced all of them combined, you'd land on 738 million euros. Not a typo. More than double what Manchester City's academy is worth, more than double Bayern Munich's. La Masia isn't just the most famous academy in football anymore, it's officially, statistically, the most valuable one on the planet. So this should be a victory lap. A farmhouse next to a stadium turned homesick teenagers into Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, and now Lamine Yamal, currently the most valuable footballer alive. Great story. Roll credits, except I don't think this is a victory lap video. I think it's a read the fine print video, because the same academy minting talent faster than anyone on earth is also right now quietly losing some of that talent out the back door, and why says a lot about what success actually costs. Let's get into it. La Masia wasn't always the finished product you see today. It started in 1979 as a literal farmhouse. That's what the name means in Catalan, sitting next to the Camp Nou. Repurposed by President Josep Luis Núñez into a dormitory for kids the club wanted to develop. He'd clearly been watching what Ajax did in Amsterdam, because the concept was the same. Don't just train talented kids, raise them inside a specific footballing worldview. That worldview took shape through the 80s, technical ability, and ball control over size and physicality, at a time when most of European football still worshipped whoever could win a header. Tell your scouts to pass on the biggest kid in the tournament for the smallest one, who's the best passer, and that's not just a coaching philosophy, it's a statement about what kind of club you want to be. Barcelona made that statement almost 50 years ago, and they're still cashing the check. And why says a lot about what success actually costs. Let's get into it. Then Johan Cruyff shows up, and everything gets sharpened into a system. In 1988, Cruyff mandated that literally every youth team, from the littlest kids up to the first team, would play the same shape and the same principles. Control the ball, press high, think 3 passes ahead, not eventually adapt to the first team's style, play it from day one. A 10-year-old at La Masia and Cruyff's first team were, in theory, running the same script. That continuity is the whole trick, and it's why the next 20 years produced an absurd run of coaches, Van Gaal, Rijkaard, and eventually Pep Guardiola, who didn't have to reinvent the club's identity. They just sharpened a pencil that was already there. It peaked in 2009 when Guardiola's Barcelona won every trophy mathematically available in a single season, 6 of them, with a spine that was almost entirely homegrown. Messi, Xavi, Iniesta. In 2010, the top 3 finishers for the Ballon d'Or were all products of the same academy, not the same league, the same building. That has never happened before or since for any club. And then Barcelona did what a lot of successful institutions eventually do. They got bored of the thing that made them successful. Through the 2010s, under President Josep Maria Bartomeu, the club's spending priorities shifted hard toward the transfer market. Big fees, big names, big wages. While the pipeline that had just produced arguably the greatest midfield in history quietly slid down the priority list, it wasn't that La Masia stopped producing players, it's that fewer of them could see a route into a first team stacked with expensive outside signings. Graduates got loaned out, sold off, or left to watch from the bench while the club spent hundreds of millions on players who, in some cases, contributed less than the kid they didn't trust. Layer on ballooning debt and a wage bill the club could no longer afford, and by 2021, Barcelona wasn't just an academy that had lost its way, it was a club in outright financial crisis staring at a first-team squad. It literally couldn't register under league rules. It's the twist, and it's a very football kind of twist. The crisis is what saved the academy. When Joan Laporta returned as president in 2021, Barcelona genuinely couldn't afford to buy its way out of problems anymore. So the only rational move left was the one sitting right in front of them. Xavi Hernandez, a La Masia kid himself, took over as coach and started throwing academy players into a broken first team out of necessity as much as idealism. Gavi Pedri, Ansu Fati, then a kid named Lamine Yamal, who debuted at 15 and is now at 18, the single most valuable footballer on the planet at 200 million euros. Hansi Flick has kept the pipeline running since. Right now there are academy graduates all through Barcelona's matchday squads, and the model has become the financial backbone of the club as much as the sporting one. So, La Masia isn't just back on paper, it has never been bigger. This is where most of the coverage stops. The valuation, the trophies, the redemption arc, but sit with the numbers a second because they tell a less flattering story underneath the highlight reel. Barcelona's actual annual spending on running the academy peaked at around 36 million euros in 2020-21. Then, under the same Laporta administration getting credit for the renaissance, it got cut year after year, bottoming out near 25.5 million a couple of seasons later, close to a 30% cut to the exact institution the club leans on to justify not spending in the transfer market. La Masia isn't thriving because of new investment, it's thriving despite less of it, a remarkable coaching achievement, or a ticking clock, depending how long you think that can hold. Then there's what I'd call the talent paradox, a genuinely ironic problem to have. La Masia's whole job is to produce first-team ready players, but when your first team already has Yamal, Pedri, Kubasi, and half a dozen other academy products entrenched as starters in their late teens, where does the next wave actually break through? You can only field 11 players. Barcelona has built a bottleneck out of its own success, and that bottleneck has a body count. In January 2026, 18-year-old midfielder Dro Fernandes, a kid Flick had personally praised and handed a first-team debut, walked out the door to PSG for a fee barely above his release clause because he couldn't get guaranteed minutes at Barcelona. He wasn't the first Marc Guiu left for Chelsea the same way. Alex Valiet went to Como. PSG had already run this exact play once before, poaching Xavi Simons out of the academy back in 2019. Every one of these deals is small money for Barcelona. Everyone is also a data point suggesting some of La Masia's best young players have quietly concluded the fastest route to real first-team football is out the door. So here's where that leaves us. La Masia is right now, statistically the most valuable academy on earth. It is also running on a smaller budget than it had 5 years ago, producing more talent than its own roster can absorb, and watching some of that overflow walk straight into the arms of direct rivals for pocket change. That's not a crisis in the way 2011 to 2021 was a crisis. It's a quieter problem, wearing a trophy around its neck, and quiet problems are exactly the kind that clubs tend to notice 5 years too late. If you want to see how this plays out the next 18 months, how Barcelona handles contracts, release clauses, and squad depth for the next generation coming through, will probably tell us more about the future of this academy than the last 15 years combined.